Hello again. So this is part two of the beginners bushcraft module, where this module will talk about knives and what knife do you buy, what steel, etc., budget, and I've gone through all that on pretty much on part one. So if you've gone straight onto this one and you haven't got a clue what I'm on about, then go on to part one. Okay, so this is part two, where I discuss what grind are there out there, what grinds do you go for, and again, this is a big, in the world of bushcraft, this is a massive thing, debate on what is the perfect bushcraft knife, what is the perfect grind. People are obsessed with grinds. This grind's better than that, and that's better than this, or this knife's better than that. And my opinion of that is, knife grinds is purely down to the individual. Okay. Now, when you start your knife journey, it's entirely up to you where you go with regards to the shape of your knife, the size of your knife, what grinds you use. Okay, and all that will come as you gain more experience. Okay, so you might start off, which I'll discuss in a minute, the knife grinds. You might start off with, let's say, a Scandi grind, otherwise known as just pure Scandi in bushcraft terminology, if you like, which stands for Scandinavian grind. Okay, so somebody might say, start off with a Scandi grind, and and you're scratching your head and you're thinking, what's a Scandi grind? And don't get me wrong, there's hundreds of videos out there on explaining what a Scandi grind is and why it's so popular in the world of bushcraft. And it is a good grind to have, especially for the beginner. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Okay, so I can't give you a demonstration on these grinds. So I'm not obviously in the field today, and obviously this is not my house. It's my parents' house, and I don't want to get wood chippings all over the floor and everywhere. It's not going to go down well. So I will discuss some of the grinds that you can buy from retailers and things like that. And then at the end of the video, I'll discuss what is the best grind for the beginner bushcraft. Now, I don't mean it's the best grind ever, but what I'm saying is it's the best knife grind for the beginner to start with. Okay, we've all the bushcrafters, as far as I know, have all at one point either used or still use a Scandi grind knife. Okay, now I do still use Scandi grind knives, but I've kind of moved away from that, because Scandinavian grind for me sometimes has its drawbacks, which again I'll discuss, and doesn't mean I don't. It's not the grind's not very good. It's really good grind to have, especially for your basics. But there is, for me, this is my personal opinion, better options out there. But all that, you'll gain all that in as you grow, as you develop as a bushcrafter. You might use other knives with different types of grinds, and which you find a lot better than with the current grind that you've got. Okay, so it's all down to personal choice and what you need and what you get out of a bushcraft knife. So the grind is up to you, but I will discuss with you today some of the more popular choices, if you like, out there, without going complicated, because there is some really complicated grinds out there. For instance, like a rhombic Scandi or a Scandi Vex. Now, don't worry about terminology or anything like that, all that will come to you. But what I'm doing today is I'm going to show you the basics, the basic grinds that are available to you, without being without going in too much detail into specialist grinds. Okay, so the more popular knives like Mora knife. So when we had a quick break, I managed to find a Mora knife because I got rid of most of my Mora knives, I think. So this is like a wooden handle version. This was one I've customed myself, the just an experiment. So this is a Mora knife. Yeah, this is carbon steel. Okay, so again, everything's upside down. So this is a Mora carbon steel. I think it's around 4-inch blade. I think about maybe 2mm thick. Okay, so that's one of many more options out there. That is a good starting point for beginners bushcrafters, and you can probably pick these up for maybe 10-15 pounds. You know, the more popular ones, obviously Mora companions, they have like kind of a rubber overmode handle, so for when you use it for long periods, that handle really comes into its own because it's really comfortable if you don't like traditional wood. Sometimes obviously wood takes a lot of looking after, and I suppose it can be slippy if your hands are wet, and can be quite hard when you're choking up on a knife and you're doing your bushcraft and things. So a lot of people, and again that comes with the experience, and you'll learn that as you go along. So one handle design might not work for you, so then you'll choose another knife with a different kind of handle, a rubber handle, a micarta, whatever kind of handle, and you might feel that that's better. But this is a one of the more classic knives, I think they're called. Now the classic ones been going for donkey's years, all the way from back in the day, when they're first producing ones like Frost, Mora Frost, and things like that. Which again, I'm not here to give you a history lesson, but I'm sure you can do your own research. But yeah, so the more classic knives they're all wooden handles knives, and to go with that classic look kind of thing. They are really good knives. You know, I suppose you can process wood to a certain degree, but bear in mind this is not full tang, and it's just got a little stainless steel ferrule with a wooden handle. That's kind of a hidden tang, but it's more of a kind of a stick tang, if you like, which only goes through so far. But again, budget friendly knives, Moras, but try and get the ones with the rubber overmold rather than traditional classic design. Well, I was just giving you an example. So knife grinds. Don't know why I've just put it away. We'll discuss knife grind. Okay, so this is in that camera closer. Okay, so this is what bushcrafters call a Scandi grind, a Scandinavian grind. What is a Scandinavian grind? Well, and what is it used for? So Scandinavian grind basically is, you've got a big thick shoulder here, and it comes down to a very sharp edge. So if you look at the profile, it's almost like a chisel. Okay, so it's almost like a wedge shape. Okay, so it's basically like that, and it's like a wedge shape all along the bevel. So all along that bevel there is like a wedge shape. Okay, now that has two advantages. Is one, it can bite through wood, and processed wood, and bite through wood quite deeply, depending on the kind of Scandi grinds, which again I'll discuss, you're using. And B, it makes it good for like light chores, like you could use it for light batoning, and it can probably even withstand a bit of light chopping, although this knife is not really designed for chopping because it's very light. It's not full tang. Again, all these terminologies I'll discuss with you, but that's why bushcrafters like them, because they're very good for wood processing. Okay, so Scandinavian grind usually comes with a thick shoulder here at the top of the bevel, and then it kind of thins out into like a wedge shape like this. So when you're processing wood, if you understand how a chisel works, when you're chiseling wood, it's got that kind of wedge shape. So as you're going along the wood grain, it's kind of scraping the wood as you're going along into really small fine shavings. Okay, now same with a lot of grinds, there is advantages and disadvantages of a lot of grinds. No grind is perfect for all the jobs, and you as a beginner's bushcrafter who's new to all this will find that out, and and after a time being there'll be other options for you that you like better. Okay. So the advantages of this, obviously it's a nice wedge shape. When you're processing wood, it can bite pretty deep into the wood, and you can really process fine shavings with it. A good Scandinavian grind edge, because of that wedge shape. It does reinforce the edge a little bit, so it can take quite a bit of hammer, really. Not as much as other knives, other knife grinds, which again I'll go into later on. But it can hold its own because of that wedge shape, and because of that wedge shape, so when it bites into, when you're processing like kindling, so when you're hitting it from the top with a log, stick, whatever, when it bites into the wood underneath, because it's got that wedge shape, it splits the wood as it's going down. So if you look at a splitting axe, if you've ever seen, or if you're not too sure what splitting axe is, then again there's plenty of videos of what splitting axe is. And splitting axes come with like a wedge shape, so it's got a fine point like that, and it comes with the wedge shape. So when you hit the wood, it splits the wood in half, and it's not the apex that splits the wood. Okay, the apex is just there to set it. But it's the same with a knife with a Scandi edge. Okay, so when you hit the top of the spine into the wood, the edge will go through first, depending on how high up the apex is, the bevel is, and it will set inside the bevel. Okay, so for instance, okay, so imagine this is your wood, this is your knife with your Scandinavian grind, that nice sharp wedge point. So when you put your knife there, the edge goes down first into the wood, sets into the wood. Okay, then when you carry on hitting it at the top, it then starts to, the knife then starts to go deeper and deeper. And because this bit here is a wedge shape, it's really hard to see on camera. It's a nice thick wedge shape. As it's going down the wood grain, it's splitting the wood because of that wedge shape. Okay, and that's why a Scandinavian grind, the Scandi grind if you like, comes into its own in bushcraft, and that's why a lot of bushcrafters love them. And it's probably the number one choice for bushcrafters, not just here in the UK but all over the world. At one point or another they've all used a Scandinavian grind, or even use it to this day, and they do come in handy. I definitely recommend it for the beginner. Another thing a Scandinavian grind is good for is sharpening, and the reason for that is because of that wedge shape, the bevel of your knife is already set. Again, I'll do a separate video on sharpening knives, and I'll show you, give you tips along the way, and how to sharpen knives, the very basics, with no machinery or anything like that. All that will become later on in the modules. But because of this bevel here, this shoulder, so when you sit your knife down on your edge, when you're sharpening it, you lay the knife down flat. Okay, and because of that wedge shape, that shoulder there, if you rock it back and forwards, it's a bit hard because I'm using a T-mat. That's all I've got. Right, so when you're rocking the knife, you can see it from the side, rock it from side to side, and you can feel that bevel. Okay, so all you have to do when you're sharpening it is lay the knife flat, tilt it up like that until it's in line with the shoulder, that bevel, and then go along the knife, go along your stone or whatever you're using to sharpen your knife. And it's as simple as that. Okay, now when sharpening a Scandinavian grind, again I'll go into the ins and outs and basics of sharpening. Actually, I'm talking to you as a beginner that's never sharpened or never handled a knife in their life or anything like that. when you lay your knife flat, you're only sharpening this portion, okay, all the way up to this bevel here. So your bevel starts there, and the shoulder is there, and the bit you're sharpening is the thickest bit there. So you're sharpening all the way along the edge. Okay, so you're not sharpening this bit, you're only sharpening where the bevel starts, which is there all the way along. Again, I'll explain about sharpening in the upcoming videos, but that's what's called a bevel. And when you're sharpening, you go with the bevel, and because the angle is already set, usually on a Scandi it's about 25 degrees, something like that, depending on how shallow you want your Scandi. It's normally around 25 degrees, sometimes 20 if you want it shallow. But yeah, it's there and thereabouts. Again, all this will be discussed in later videos, but it's very easy because that bevel is already there. So all you have to do when you're sharpening is follow the bevel. So you don't have to like keep tilting it up and doing that and rolling it and things like that. You just go with the bevel. Okay, so lay it flat, tilt it up slightly until you can feel that your stone is in line with that bevel, and then you go along and you go along and you switch sides, do exactly the same thing. You follow the bevel, you follow all that bevel there all the way along, and then you go along and go along without moving the knife. Just keep it at that bevel. Again, all this will be explained, but that's why a Scandinavian grind is so popular in the bushcraft community, because it's easy to sharpen. Definitely easy to sharpen in the field when all you need is like a small sharpening stone, maybe like a DC4. I'm not going to go into terminology and complicate things for you, the beginner who's watching this. Everything will be explained on what the tools to use and different tools what I recommend. But if you've got a small sharpening stone, then you can quite easily put an edge in seconds with this, when you just by following the bevel. And then again, straight off the stone, you'll then go onto the strop, which takes the burr off the edge of the apex. Again, all this will be explained in different modules, but that's the Scandinavian grind. Okay, so it's basically like a wedge shape. So it starts off there, quite a thick bevel shoulder, and then it narrows down. And then if you look at this area here, it's like what we call the castle area here before this bolster here, then you can see that V shape, that taper. You can see that V shape. It's very hard because I've really got my camera on my phone, but yeah, so it's like in shape of a V, and that's the Scandinavian grind. Okay, now without being too technical, there is a lot of knives have different kinds of Scandi. I'm not going into the complicated ones like Scandivex or anything like that. And in part one we discussed at the end of the video the best knives to buy for you, the bushcrafter novice. When you're beginner is the Mora. Now Mora knives, it's very rare that a Mora knife doesn't come with a secondary micro bevel. Okay, so although it's a Scandi grind like this, it has what we call a micro bevel. And the micro bevel is basically, it's exactly the same shape as this. So you've got the same Scandi grind, same kind of wedge shape all the way along to the apex. The apex, well, I keep discussing the apex to the beginners. The apex is basically right on the edge, the very edge of your knife. And an apex is obviously like you get an apex on a shed or something like that, is the very edge of a triangle. So an apex is anything that's triangle like that. Okay, and the apex is on top, that makes that triangle, forms that triangle shape. So that's what, excuse me, that's what called the apex. Okay, and so, and sometimes it's very hard to tell. Sometimes on the very edge of the apex, which again I discussed, which is the very edge of the knife, you will see like a line, like a reflection. Not when you're looking down on it, but when You can see it better when the sun's shining, but you'll see a reflection right on the very edge of the apex, and that's what we call a micro bevel. Now, a lot of knives that's come straight from the factory when you buy, especially from retailers. A lot of knives, especially Mora knives, come with a micro bevel. Now that's for a reason. It's because a micro bevel on a Scandi actually improves strength. It helps to strengthen the apex of the blade. Okay, so when you're using it for the first time, you'll get that micro bevel, which protects it further. The Scandi grind is not fragile by any means, because it's got a nice wedge shape. It is used for, you can use it for heavy duty and batoning if you've got the correct steel and the correct guys doing it. But a micro bevel on the Scandi grind, again, with you being a novice, you won't, until you gain more experience, you won't notice this. But when you gain more experience, you can tell, not just by looking at it, by actually using it, the way it behaves when you're carving with it. You can tell that there is a micro bevel there. So like I say, there's usually two types of Scandis. There is a zero Scandi, and there's a Scandi grind with a secondary micro bevel, and that's what I am trying to explain. So basically, a zero Scandi is a Scandi grind like this that's been ground right down to the very apex without no secondary bevel, no micro bevel whatsoever. Okay, so it's just one bevel in a wedge shape all the way down to the apex. Okay, now a Scandi that's not zero Scandi is basically Scandi grinds that is has a micro bevel to strengthen that apex. Okay, and again, you being a novice, if you've got a knife that's a zero Scandi and another knife that's got a micro bevel or any kind of bevel, there's a chance at your stage that you that you're not going to notice it much. But as you gain more experience, you'll know what I'm on about. Okay, but don't worry about that, because after a time, when you get more experience at sharpening, you can get that micro bevel off within a few minutes on a decent stone, because it can get in the way of carving. Okay, but most knives come with some sort of secondary bevel these days, or micro bevel, which basically just adds a little bit of strength to that apex. I don't know why they do it, I'm not too sure. Maybe to protect the edge during transport and when it's going through the manufacturing process, I'm not too sure. I'm not a professional knife maker, so I don't know why they leave the micro bevel on. Bit of a mystery, but that's the two types of Scandi. There are other types of Scandinavian grinds which I will not, which at the minute doesn't really concern you at the minute, which I will go on to in later modules. But the most common one is Scandi grind, either zero Scandi with no micro bevel on the apex, or just a normal Scandi grind, as Mora calls it. So 9 times out of 10, when you buy it your first Mora knife, then you will have that micro bevel on it, and you'll see when you hold it up to the light, you'll see it reflecting on the side of your knife. It's a very, very shiny line. It goes all the way from top to tip, and that's what I call micro bevel. Doesn't mean there's nothing wrong with it. There's something wrong with it. They all come like that. Okay, but it's still a very functional knife, and ease of sharpening, which I've just told you, which again I'll go into further along the line. And this is a Scandinavian grind, the #1 choice for most bushcrafters. So put that away, because I babble a lot on my videos. They tend to drag on and on and on and on, so I do apologise, but that's just me. Give you a couple of other examples. So I've just shown you a more classic with Scandi. This is another type of Scandi. pretty much the same, but it's not as deep. Okay, so the Scandi grind is still there. It's more, so I say it's more shallow in the shoulder bit there, but it's still classed as a Scandi. And if the light will pick it up, you can just see a secondary bevel right on the very edge there. Okay, can you see what I mean? It reflecting. Okay, so this is still Scandinavian ground, but you've got a micro bevel all the way across. Still classed as a Scandi, and you still got that wedge shape, but it's not as pronounced as the Moro one I've just shown you. Okay, but you can still split wood with this. So when you see a knife like this, just look for the wedge shape. Okay, and then you'll know it's a Scandi. Okay, so it's a wedge shape. What you're looking for is a wedge shape, and it thins out towards the end, and hold it to the side. Best way is to look down at this bit here, either the plunge line or the castle area, and you'll see that wedge triangle, V, with this large bevel here. Just one bevel that forms the V. Okay, and that's Scandi. That's what you're looking for your first knife. Again, won't go too much into it. And there's many different knives out there. I'm just showing you a couple of cheap ones. I've shown you more. I've shown you the Hultafers. This is just another one. If I knew about this knife many years ago, when if I knew about this, or if this was invented then, which it wasn't when I was growing up, this is the first knife I would choose for bushcraft. This knife is, when we're talking in terms for budget, this knife is absolutely fantastic. And for a basic bushcraft knife, this is probably one of the best I've used in terms of price. This is amazing, absolutely amazing. And this is called, well, it's made by Barco. It's called a Barco wrecking knife. I think it's 2445 or something like that. I'll put a link in the description anyway. This is called a Barco wrecking knife. Now they do two things. They do a Barco wrecking knife, which is a chisel, and they do a Barco wrecking knife, like a utility knife, which is what this one is. I went for a phase where I was looking at trade knives, you know, from builders and carpet fitters and joiners, to try to see if I can find a bushcraft knife, and come across this one. I think it was relatively new at the time when I bought this. I think this originally cost me £28. Well, that was when it first came out. I think now you can buy this for around 20 quid. Maybe even less, I'm not too sure, but for £20, this really is worth it. 100% worth it, in my opinion. You can hammer on this knife all day long and you won't break it. This is designed, the steel is designed so you can, for traders, that's in the trade, so it's got to be heavy duty. This is designed so you can smash this with a hammer if need be. You can smash the handle with a hammer, you know, to hammer it into wood, or use it as a chisel or things like that. But I found another option for it, another use for it, and that's a bushcraft knife. As you can see, all the scratches and dings and stuff like that. The edge is still razor sharp because I keep all my knives that way, but you can see all the scratches over the years, or the few years that I've had it. I've absolutely smashed this. I've battled logs with it, everything, and it's amazing for the price. And for the budget, if I was first starting out and knew about this knife, this would be the knife I would buy. And obviously it's got black and orange handle, so if you happen to replace it or falls out your sheath or your pocket or whatever, you can easily find it because it's bright orange. So if it drops on the floor amongst the leaves, you can see it. So it's brightly coloured as well, so it's another good thing for bushcraft. So this is called a Barco wrecking knife. I don't know if it's got the code on it. Ah, here we go. So Barco, and the numbers there. So because it's upside down, but it says 2449. So Barco wrecking knife 2449. For the budget, the best bushcraft knife I've ever used. It is a Scandinavian grind as well, but this came with, like a lot of Scandinavian knives come, this come with a secondary bevel on there, which has been removed over the time that I've had it. And the spine as well, again, I'll show you how to do this in the ins and out of Bushcraft. The spine on it I've had to file down as well, because I like a sharp spine to strike either ferro rod or processing bark, scraping bark. But yeah. I can remember when I baton through this is the first time I got it, and I was batoning through some 2x4 solid wood, some old wood, and someone had hammered nails through the wood, and I thought I got most of the nails out, but there was one nail that must have snapped off inside the wood that I didn't see, and as I was batoning this through the wood, this knife hit the nail or screw, whatever it were, and the knife got stuck. So I thought, you know, well, it can't be a knot because I'm really struggling. So I was banging and banging and banging this spine, and eventually it gave way, and then I managed to split all the way around. And when I looked at the wood and I saw a bit of steel sticking out, I thought, yeah, that's why the knife got stuck, because there was a nail inside the wood. I didn't see it, and it damaged the knife, but not bad. Okay, so I'm trying to think, where is it? I call it my battle scar, the first battle scar. And you can see it. See, it's hard to pick up on camera, but there's a deep scratch there, and that's where it hit the nail. And when the obviously nail snapped, it scratched a deep scratch in the blade, all the way from there all the way up, like it gouged out. But the knife took it, and yes, it did chip the knife, but this is how good the steel is. It didn't take long to get that chip out and put an edge back on here, and then it was good to go. Within 10 minutes it was good to go again when I repaired it, and it's withstood everything I've thrown at it. It's just crazy. And the rubber handle, this is the most comfortable rubber handle I've ever handled. In all the bushcraft knives with rubber handles that I've used, this is by far the most comfortable. And because obviously it's designed for traders, it's slightly oversized handle, because obviously some traders wear gloves in the trade. I've got like, I won't say large hands, but probably a little bit bigger than medium hands, and look how much it sticks out there. Okay, I've still got a lot, and because you've got a lot of handle there as well, you can do some light chopping with it, which I've also done. So guys, if you're watching this, the beginner bushcraft knife, yes, you can go with more knives, but if you want a really tough knife for a really low budget, then Barco wrecking knife 2449, highly recommend it. The only thing I don't recommend is the sheath. It's just a basic sheath, plastic sheath. It says Barco on it. It's not Kydex, it's just plastic. I don't like the belt loop there at all, because I can see that coming off. So the only bad thing about it is the sheath is rubbish. Yes, it does retain it pretty well, but nah, I don't like it. It's too plasticky for me. So yeah, so Scandi grinds, for the basic bushcrafter, that's where I would start if I was you. Scandi grinds, obviously I've just discussed what Scandi grind is, what it's used for, what intents and purposes it's used for. So if you're wondering, out of all the knives out there, what is the best knife choice, the grind to go for is the Scandi grind. Okay, now coming up to 35 minutes now, so I'm going to stop the video there, and after the video I'm going to do part 3. I'm going to discuss other grinds. Try not to complicate it too much, and the difference between other grinds and the Scandi grind, and why I think you should start with, the beginners should start with a Scandinavian grind compared to other grinds, which I'll show you in part 3. Okay, so hope you enjoyed it. I haven't rubbed this on too much, and always leave comments. I love reading comments on my videos, and love responding to comments when I've got time to do it, and what you think, or you tell me what was your first bushcraft knife, if you've been doing bushcraft for a long time, the same as me, or even if you need any tips or anything like that if you're a beginner, and drop your comments down there, and I'll try my best to get back to you and answer any questions. But yeah, that's the end of part 2. There will be a part 3 where I discuss other grinds very quickly, but I thought I'd do a more in-depth conversation on Scandinavian grinds, either Halterfish, Barco and Amora. Okay, so see you in part 3. Bye bye for now.